It is 6:30. I'm going to go ahead and convene this meeting of the Rancho Simi Recreation and Park District with a call to order and pledge of allegiance. I see that we have a couple young people that are going to lead us in the pledge. Before they do that, can you tell us your favorite local park, each of you?
Local park. What is it? Is it one local here or? Do you like the bike park? Do you like the aquatic park? We live in Santa Clarita.
Well, there's a lot of good parks out there too. So
There is, and it's hard. So
we'll go ahead and start with the pledge. Then go ahead and lead us in the pledge.
okay, you ready? 1, 2, 3. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Before we call the roll, I would like to point out we're having a meeting on Wednesday night. When I was first on the park board, I didn't realize that we could have a meeting on a different night of the week, and I just figured as a teacher at Royal, I wouldn't be able to go to graduation sometimes, and that's just the way it is. But it was Ed who looked at the calendar way in advance and didn't just consider his schedule, but mine too, and said, can we move that meeting to Wednesday? So Ed, this is in your box. It's a Royal High School hat. Next time you're, just pick it up over there, but thank you because
Go Royal. I'm a Royal High grad, so I love it.
I got it for you. And tomorrow night's going to be a special graduation, so I appreciate it. Gina, will you call the roll?
Director Abela?
Here.
Director Freeman?
Here.
Director Gray?
Here.
Vice Chair O'Brien?
Here.
And Chair Dennert?
Here. That brings us to agenda review.
Thank you, Chair. Staff's distributed a supplemental related to agenda item 9A, which is a new chart that corrected for a typo in a budget number and also added an alternative for the board to consider when we get to that item. Other than that, staff has no changes to the agenda.
Is that available for the public? Is it posted, or can we post it?
Yes, we're going to be showing it during the item, and it's posted on the website.
Sounds good. That brings us to public statements for items not on the agenda. If you speak into this part, you'll have 3 minutes. You could choose to identify yourself. You could choose to identify where you live. You're not required to, but you'll have 3 minutes to speak about any issue. After that, board members, because it's not an item on the agenda, will be limited in our comments. Like, we won't discuss it or debate it in detail. But anybody here for public comments for items not on the agenda?
Yes.
Charles, go ahead.
Yeah, good evening. My name's Chris Gadbois. The Charles is my son for his Zoom for class. You may remember me. I know Elaine does, and Brian. I've been a long time BMXer at Sycamore BMX along with my family. I helped in some of the development for the plans. Hold on one second, sorry guys. Sorry, noise background. Anyway, I'd like to have the board put this back on the agenda. It's been over 3 years since we were supposed to have a track built. I've suggested to Elaine and some other members of the board about obviously being cost conscious about putting the track. There was talk about putting the track back at the horse arena. And just so you guys know, for those that are new to the board, I actually walked that entire neighborhood twice, surveyed and talked to people about them being okay with the BMX park being there, and everybody was okay except for 2 guys that do not even live on the main drag. They're about as far away from the horse arena as you can get. So we'd like to see some action taken. Like I said, it's been over 3 years. We're post-COVID, and just get back to business and get this going. It's been a long time waiting for people, and you know, it was. If you look at Santa Clarita put in their track. We gave some numbers to Ed. They're seeing over 2,500 people a month participate at the track. They've actually gone the route of foregoing some new park space to start putting in more BMX and bicycling amenities. More use.
Madeline, if you could mute yourself, I'll call on you in a minute if you would like to speak. Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, and like I said, it's I know that one of the concerns has been trying to get an actual rider count, and I think that's going to be difficult pre-COVID, what the rider count was versus what people are doing on bikes right now. Like I said, Santa Cruz has been a victim of their own success, to the point where they're trying to play catch up on keeping up with the amount of people that are actually using the track. So I'd like to just see me get back into it. You guys had a long history in BMX, and I'd like to see that continue. And there's a lot of people willing to help you guys out however we can.
All right, Chris, thank you. I see that there's other people, I'm going to guess, on the same agenda item, or I'm sorry, for the same topic. Bob, is that you?
Yes, it's me, my son Robert, and my daughter Savina. We're all still members of the Sycamore BMX team. We were there 3 years ago when my son got up and spoke about trying to keep the BMX track. We'd still love the track to come back. This is our family. We race with these guys. Now we're still out of a track right now. Sometimes we have to drive an hour and 20 out to Bakersfield. Friday nights in Bellflower. You can imagine Friday night traffic driving down to Bellflower is crazy. The numbers at the SCV track are huge with the bike park and the BMX track, and we need somewhere close here. The kids have, this is part of their family. The BMX racers are part of their family. They're friends, places to ride, keeping the kids busy, away from the games. We're out there riding. I can ride with my daughter, my son on the same track. It's a family sport. I don't understand why, we're 3 years down the road. I'm not sure what happened. I haven't been in on all the conversations, but I thought it was supposed to turn around and we were going to be getting a new track built. So, we're still family, and we're still part of the team, and we want to continue that and grow with our BMX family that are all local residents around here. Savina, what do you want? What would you like to say? You want to hang out and ride with your friends on the track?
Yeah.
Robert, how about you?
I want to go see a new track that's been built and actually be able to ride one.
Yeah.
That's closer.
Yeah, it's
Bob, I think I heard him say wants to ride closer.
come on.
I want to ride the track that's closer to our house because a lot of the other ones, due to traffic, they take over an hour. And we want something closer.
And is
Well, and also the tracks, some of the ones that are outlying areas, they're not in good shape. They haven't been taken care of. And yeah, I just don't understand where we're at right now. Sycamore was just such a huge thing for our family, and it was kept up nice. It was a great place to attend. So I just want to thank you all for your time.
thank you. I see another public speaker, I believe, for the same topic. The screen name is Madeline. Madeline, are you here for this topic?
I'm here, but I don't need to speak.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that has public comment on an item not on the agenda? Dan, only because we're on Zoom and I want to make sure everybody can hear us. Do you see anybody else that you thought might be speaking on an item not on the agenda?
I do not, Chair. Mike Freeman, potentially.
Mike? Do you want to speak about anything? All right, before we move on to the next item, for the people that are here tonight, I heard what your request was, and I'll just go through the process because it's not on the agenda, so we can't discuss it in detail. The reasoning for that is the public, if they know something's on the agenda, we notice it, so they know to come to the meeting and give input, so we can listen to them. In our February 2020 meeting, which is obviously right before COVID shut things down, we discussed it in detail. Many people were there. Some board members thought it was expensive. Some board members wanted to pursue if they could be done at a lower price. And we asked for a reduced cost, input on rider numbers, which is obviously, I understand, hard to get. Specifically wanted to see a board put together, like a nonprofit, and a business plan for managing it. Because Bob, as you mentioned, some tracks are not well managed, and Sycamore was and maintained. So those are the types of things that I wanted to see. But any board member could put it back on the agenda to see what the board feels at that time. That's going to bring us to approval of minutes.
Brian, can I make one comment to that for you, just to let you know that that stuff has been submitted to Ed, that the org chart and everything else has been submitted to your Parks and Rec director of the items you asked for.
All right, Ed, did you get that? You mean Ed or Zach or Dan?
Not me.
No, I received it. This is Dan.
Dan, what did you receive?
I got a list of a proposed board of directors, and also just today, a list of number of folks. I haven't looked at the list closely, but number of riders potentially that would use the track.
And not a business plan yet, though?
I have not seen a business plan, no.
All right, to follow up, any member of the board could put it on the agenda. And Dan, you can obviously be in contact with them at a future date, correct?
Correct.
All right. That brings us to approval of minutes. And we have two for A and B, Rancho Senior Recreation and Park District Budget Workshop. We're gonna go with that one first. Any discussion on the minutes there?
Yeah, Brian, one correction, only because I've, since this came up, I've gotten to know her. On page 1, under public statements, where it says Stacy Vandershoot, that's actually Stacy Vanderschaff. It's spelled VANDERSCHAFF. So I just wanted to have her name correct on there. And I'll make a motion to approve.
Gina, did you get that? The spelling?
Yes, I got the change.
So Ed, you make a motion to approve it with that alteration, with that update?
Yes.
And Kate, you second that?
Second.
Gina, will you call the roll on that?
Director Abela,
Aye.
Director Freeman,
Aye.
Director Gray,
Aye.
Vice Chair O'Brien,
Yes.
and Chair Dennert.
Yes.
And the motion passes with a unanimous vote.
That brings us to approval of minutes, Rancho Senior Recreation Park District Board Meeting, May 20th, 2021.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Gina, will you call the roll?
Sorry, Director Abela,
Aye.
Director Freeman,
Aye.
Director Gray,
Aye.
Vice Chair O'Brien,
Yes.
and Chair Dennert.
Yes.
And the motion carries with a unanimous vote.
That brings us to the consent agenda. And there's one item on that, approval of accounts payable. Before we make any motions, is there any public comment on that? Not seeing any discussion or motion?
I have a couple of questions on the accounts payable check register. First one is on page 3, it's check number 97150. And it's a membership when FMCSA. What is that? FMCSA.
Page 3.
Page 3. Read.
If I could, staff, this is Advanced Workplace Strategies. It's the company's name, and it's a fee for FMCSA.
I'm not familiar with that FMCSA.
I'm not either. I'd have to look that up.
Okay. And the only other question I had is the first 5 items on page 1. And I'm always got my Andes in a knot over credit card fees. These are like 14,000 something. Are these annual amounts or quarterly or monthly or what?
Those are monthly fees. 2 of them are related to the golf course and the other 2 are related to registration for recreation programs. Those are the credit card fees that we pay.
Right. Okay, I was just curious.
Richard or Danielle might know the answer to this. With our a new event or class sign up website or program, are the credit card fees likely to stay the same, or is that separate or this a part of it? So as we move away from Max Galaxy.
Good question.
I can answer that. So the fee structure is a little bit different, but then the overall fees, so they have an implementation fee and then they have the credit card fees. So what we're paying right now and what we will be paying might be slightly different.
Okay. All right.
So I think right now we're paying probably, I think somewhere between 2.5% and theirs is, I believe 2.75% plus a transaction fee.
Okay.
And what do we get for that increased fee?
It's just the credit card processor that they use.
We don't have options on that, do we?
We don't, unfortunately.
I did a quick check with this, and our total spending as a percentage of our total spending for the month, I get 4.5%. Am I missing something? Did I do the math wrong?
Chair, if I could, and I believe we have had a really high month because people are registering for summer classes. So if we've got more people registering for classes in any particular month, it's going to abnormally show higher on the credit card fees because we have a lot of revenue for the month. So.
All right, it says a function of revenue, not spending. Okay.
Yeah, so while it may be a percentage, it should be the rate that we pay for credit card processing consistent with how many credit cards we've processed, and whatever that percentage is what it should be. But we can double check that. If you calculate it at 4%, we can double check
I may
that.
have done a math error too. I could have it. Okay, that's fine.
The Knowles Fire Station has internet service. What value do we get out of that?
I can jump in if you don't mind. We're actually currently running programs there right now. So the Simi Valley Senior Center continues to be closed. So we've moved a lot of our senior programming over to that site. So those seniors are now using the internet there for their programs.
That makes sense. Any other questions or motions on the consent agenda?
I'll move for approval.
Second that. Gina, will you call the roll?
Yes. Director Avila,
Aye.
Director Freeman,
Yes.
Director Gray,
Aye.
Vice Chair O'Brien,
Yes.
and Chair Denner.
Yes. That means it carries with unanimous support. That brings us to item 7. Presentation scheduled items and public hearing. Item A, presentation of the full-time employee of the month for May 2021 to Jim Johnson.
Chair, the employee of the month was unable to attend this evening. He did ask me to pass on his thanks to staff that nominated him, as well as to the board for this special acknowledgement.
Any comments from staff or board members? To earn this award in this time when our maintenance staff is under increased pressure for all their work is impressive. Although I see that he's won 5 times total this year, I could see that being special. Is there any public comment on the presentation of the full-time employee of the month? Any other comments? That'll bring us to item B. Update on the community outreach and promotion plan, a verbal report.
Thank you, Chair and Board of Directors. We've got a brief PowerPoint I think we're going to pull up here. I'm going to kick it off for some opening comments, and I'll turn it over to the Recreation for the conclusion of the presentation. This is just to update the board on the progress of the community outreach and promotion plan, and let
Alex,
you know
can
where
you
we
give
are on that.
me, yep, perfect. Alex, can you give me permission to share?
Yeah, you should be able to now.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. Perfect. Can everybody see that okay?
Yep. Can we go to slide 2, Danielle?
Absolutely.
Just a brief background. About 6 months ago, the district staff had worked with a marketing and promotions consultant, and we put together some documents in order to improve our marketing and promotions program and our efforts. That generally included, we had the plan, which is basically a strategic plan, and it gives us our goals and objectives for implementing the plan. We did an editorial style guide, which is basically what they call our brand map, which is consistency and the delivery of our products. And then we also received from them some wisdom on social media. So that we did that 6 months ago. Those documents continue to guide the community outreach and promotions plan as we are implementing it today. Generally, the goals of the plan were to increase total class registration, to enhance the number of participants per class, to expand our facility use and rentals, to boost event participation, and to develop a strong and consistent brand. At the time, about 6 months ago or so, we had indicated that was going to be about a 12-month implementation process to do all the tasks included in the plan and to get it in a place where we want it to be to fully maximize what the objectives are. So we're now about 6 months into that, 5 or 6 months. So we thought this was the time to give the board a little update on where we are in implementation. The chart on the right, we have elevating the priority and the importance of the effort. What we've done is we've created a staffing structure where all of the employees are involved in the community and the promotions plan. So it's a decentralized structure, and basically what we've done is everybody has a piece, or every staff person is responsible for the various components of implementing the plan. So we have a decentralized implementation model and task model, and then we have a structure where we have centralized oversight, so we get the consistency to make sure we're meeting the goals. The chart on the right just depicts a steering committee that we have put together that drives the implementation of the plan. And so that's the overall vision that we had for this. I'm going to turn it over to the staff, and they're going to update you on items we've implemented to date and some upcoming items we'll be pursuing over the next 6 months or so.
Thank you, Dan. So as Dan described, we have a vision and we have a plan. And in order to properly execute those plans, we developed a COPP committee. This committee meets twice a month to organize and discuss the promotional efforts. We design a monthly calendar, we identify one-time projects, and we strategize our long-term goals. This committee also analyzes promotional strategies and makes recommendations. So as noted in the organizational chart that you just saw, each department is represented with a liaison. So they are able to bring their department matters to the meeting, and the committee discusses and considers what would be promoted for that particular month. As promotional needs are assessed, subcommittees have actually been formed as well to help distribute the responsibility and bring in additional staff that maybe wouldn't be a part of that bi-monthly meeting. So a subcommittee, for example, was started to diversify the task for social media. So 2 additional staff that weren't normally integrated in the COPP committee have now been brought into the fold and will be assisting with social media in the next couple of weeks. So that'll hopefully help us enhance our reach and also diversify the workload a little bit. A website subcommittee was also formed to analyze the current structure and to offer suggestions for improvement. So you'll be able to see kind of a new website over the next few months. We also developed a photography committee. They are organizing all of our existing photos as well as identifying what our current needs are so that we can have a more robust library of photos. In each of these committees, work is diversified amongst different staff. They're able to report back their efforts to either the subcommittee chair or to the larger committee through the department liaison. So one of the projects in the COPP meetings is to develop a monthly calendar. And I believe you guys have gotten a copy of this as well. So we basically take all of the different events and promotions that we want to do throughout the month, and we put them in kind of an organizational chart that identifies who's going to do that project, when the deadline would be for final submission. So this would include social media posts, ads in the Acorn, ads that we put on digital advertisements, as well as our radio, our email marketing, and things like that. So here's some of the completed projects that we've done. We're going to kind of go through some of these in more detail in the coming slides, but just collectively so you can kind of see, we have updated our business cards. We've created a template for a monthly and quarterly Acorn ad. We developed flyer templates, so staff have the ability now to use a generated template to create their flyers. We have new letterhead and envelopes, which we'll show you in the presentation. We also did a PowerPoint template, which we're actually using right now. And then we developed a press release template. So we've done a lot of work with our press releases, which we'll discuss as well. We created our activity guide, which you'll see in the next slide, and we developed social media templates. So staff can plug in photos and different events that they have going on into a cohesive template. And then we also created a public document cover sheet, which you'll see in some of the coming reports. So here are some of the deliverables. On the left, you're going to see our newly designed cover of the Simi Valley Activity Guide. This specific cover was designed to promote the upcoming 60th anniversary. So it presents a collage of pictures that represent our agency and the history here in Simi. Coming guides will have a similar header and footer, but a predominant picture will be chosen that highlights that season or the particular offerings that we have during that time. So not shown here, though, we do have an Oak Park activity guide as well. It looks very much the same and we'll copy the same format as the Simi Valley one. The picture on the right is, of course, our new and very, very popular trail guide. So created by RSRPD staff, this feature-rich brochure actually follows the same editorial style guide. So it has that same look, touch, and feel that these other documents have as well. So on the left here, you're going to see one of our latest, which is a template for our email promotions. We use Constant Contact, where we have over 15,000 emails that we can distribute. That includes both the Simi and Oak Park areas. So this template will actually serve as kind of a monthly newsletter that will go out. It'll feature current happenings, district news, events, and activities that we wanted to get out to the community. On the right, you'll see our latest Acorn ad. It's a junior size page, so just shy of a full page. It's scheduled in the Simi Valley Acorn at the end of each month, and it'll be in the Oak Park probably quarterly. We're coordinating a schedule with them right now.
Danielle, look at the pictures on the right. Were those locally taken pictures?
Many of them are. We're actually increasing our photo library right now. So the two at the top are stock photos. The two at the bottom are our own. And the two at the bottom are actually done by a photographer who used to be one of our volunteers. If you look at the one on the left, though, all of those pictures are our kiddos.
Nice.
Let's see the next one. So here we've got two examples of some flyers. They both follow the new branding. The one on the left was created by our marketing consultant, but can be modified now for staff. So it doesn't have to be just for the egg scramble. We actually modified this flyer for an age 50+ program. So we can extract some of the different pictures and the text, but we're given kind of an overall template for staff to start with. The flyer on the right was created from scratch by staff, kind of using that editorial style guide and creating that same kind of look, touch, and feel. And I'm going to pass it over to Richard, who's going to talk about some of the other deliverables.
Danielle, if I could, I just wanted to note that the flyers are important because those are the ones we use as the baseline for social media and some of our advertising as well. So it's not just simply used as a flyer, it's used as the information piece that we push out to the community through emails, social media, you know, those kind of things.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you, Danielle. Good evening, board. So just an extension of that commitment to color, that commitment to brand, making sure that the logo placement is always right. You see that same commitment in our social media posts. For those that have been paying attention, both the organized effort, making sure we've got consistent posting, as well as making sure that everything looks just right, has resulted in bigger exposure for the district, more engagement with the folks that we engage with on social media. These are a couple examples of posts that have been posted recently. Moving on to some of our, what we might refer to as exterior promotion, things that happen with our partners around town. The bottom left you'll see is our Where It Happens campaign that recently ran with Spectrum. They target specific avenues in which it will give us new exposure that maybe our recreation brochure and other avenues of promotion don't currently hit. And our longstanding relationship with the ranch, we've now organized an effort where we visit monthly. We have an opportunity to bring a special guest on, talk about what the district has going on, and again, reach hopefully a new clientele that maybe doesn't know quite everything about what the district has going on right now. And then these are some of our internal documents. So we talked about the letterhead that's been drafted. This is used by staff on a weekly basis, whether it's for a press release or, as you see on the right, internal documents. So when we're hosting a hiring panel, a lot of times you'll see questions published on that. The commitment to brand is both interior and exterior, all staff on board, and you see that with the documents here. And then in the middle are our beautiful new business cards that are being distributed to staff. Again, just that continued commitment to brand.
So one really important element when we're putting together all of these, what we're calling kind of deliverables, is to make sure that they're actually working. So each month, the marketing consultant is actually providing the district with an analytical report. So they go into the back end of Spectrum, they go to the ranch, they go to our digital marketing and our email strategies, and they see if they're actually working and if they fit with our plan. So this report monitors the success of all of those things. In collection of the data, the marketing firm then will provide recommendations. So they might tell us, you know, with Spectrum, we need you to take down this ad and put up a new one because you're starting to get a reduction in your impressions or your shareables or your likes. So it kind of gives us an opportunity to make sure that we are not only on track, but that we're staying on track with each of those deliverables. In addition, we want to make sure that we're being fiscally responsible with the money that we spend. Do we need to put more into our email marketing and take a little bit out of, you know, this element? So that's kind of coming up in each of those analytical reports as well. And we have flexibility to do that as we're creating all of these new documents. So depending upon the results, we kind of drive, our next meeting kind of drives what that strategy and those goals would be. So what's next? This is kind of exciting. So for us, over the next 6 months or so, we'll be working on all of these following projects. So we're updating the street map right now. Tom did a great job of including some parks that weren't on our old map. We've added some images and pictures. And then the back of our map was actually just plain. There was nothing on the back of it. So we're going to use that as a recreational marketing tool as well. So you'll see kind of a two-sided, really colorful street map here in the next month or so. We're also working on a website upgrade. So we've got a subcommittee, as I mentioned earlier, who's focused on what kind of elements do we want and need to change in our website in order to drive traffic to it, as well as keep our information up to date. The photo committee, as described earlier, is working on getting high quality photos. So we've hired, again, he was one of our volunteers. He got Volunteer of the Year for the photography he used to do for us. So we hired him to go around and collect photos of our parks and of our kids and adults who are in our programs. We're also going to be working on monthly videos. Those might highlight specific programs or events. They might be on the spot Facebook live videos, or they might be pre-recorded options. We're also looking at special event materials. So that would be your step and repeat backdrop, your swag items, your tablecloth, all the things that we would need while we're on site at our own events or at other people's events. We've got more social media promotional signs that we'll be putting out at our events and stuff as well, just to let people know that we're on each of those different platforms. And then we're working on our recreation software. So we actually just met with the implementation team, and we're currently launching that project right now. So that's kind of what we've got on the docket for the next 6 months. And we just wanted to share all of that with you guys. That kind of ends the presentation. I'm gonna stop sharing here.
So this
And we're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
This is the part where I ask if there's any public comment on this item. Any questions or comments from the public about our outreach plan? Board members, any questions or comments?
Yes, Director Benner. I would just like to say I think it's a very positive improvement and a positive approach, and it looks really good. And I also, when I got the mailer, our activity mailer, I thought, you know, this is really, really special because anybody could find out something to do if they wanted to do something. I mean, we offer a lot, and I just think it really was quite good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ed?
Okay, I do have a number of questions. So whoever can best address these, and then I have a couple comments. I do want to start off. I do think that a lot of the things that have been done here are an improvement, and I do commend everyone on that. I will have a couple comments later. First of all, so I think Danielle answered one of the questions during her presentation. We still have the consultant, correct?
Yes, we're still working with them right now.
Okay.
But we will be
and
I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. I know when we were speaking about this 6 months ago, I've inquired about this a number of times, both during meetings and outside of meetings with Dan. But and I think Elaine actually followed up on this at one of the meetings. Once we're done with the consultant, are we still taking a view? Are we still looking to hiring someone, whether it's full-time or part-time, as a central person that oversees everything? Because I really think that when you don't have the consultant, you're going to need that. I mean, committees and subcommittees are great and everything, but there seems like there's going to need to be some true oversight at some point. And I know it kind of waffled back and forth, but then it seemed like we were on the path to doing that at some point. Are we still on that path?
Let me take that one. Couple of thoughts. One is I don't see us ever getting rid of the consultant. Their commitment to us will go down, particularly when the staff gets more educated on how to do these things. I anticipate that the staff will then have that knowledge to do a lot of the work that the consultant does. That being said, the consultant will still be available for graphics advice and also strategic advice moving forward. So that's one perspective. The second perspective is it kind of depends on the results, Ed. So if we're getting some really good positive results, both in terms of participation, and if you'll recall, this ties into financial sustainability. If we start to get some really good results on this effort, and once we get it up and running, and if there is a return on the investment, and we think that a staff person could enhance that return, I would say, yes, definitely, we would look at a staff person. On the other side of that, if we are able to management and get that return with the existing structure we have, we probably wouldn't recommend a staff person. That being said, if the board is interested in hiring a staff person to do it, we can certainly do that. I think the staff believes at this point we can do it and have results without hiring an additional staff person at this point.
Well, again, if we went back, I just think it's always better to have a central person. And I think our school district proved that by doing that. And I know when we talked about this 6 months ago, my understanding was at some point we were heading to having someone who would be a central go-to person. So my hope is that we still look at that seriously and that we still do that and we haven't just taken a change of course. And that's why I'm trying to stay on top of that.
Okay, yeah, so, definitely. We'll definitely put that on the list moving forward in the next 6 months as we roll it out to see if that would definitely bring value. I know that.
And again, I've consistently been bringing this up every time we have this topic.
Yep.
I do have a question. It's going to lead into well, actually, let me backtrack a little bit here. I think the upgraded street map is a great idea. I'm curious, and I feel like I should know the answer to this, but sometimes things go in and out of my head, so I don't. So I'm going to ask. The trail guide, with the exception of the logo, which I'll talk about in a minute, the trail guide is great. I mean, it's absolutely a hit. It's just awesome. do we have, and I don't think we do, but then you guys may say something that's obvious to me and it turns out we do. So I'm just going to ask the question. Do we have anything equivalent like a park guide that would discuss our parks and describe our different parks? That, because I believe we have like 49 or 50 different parks. Do we have anything like that? And if not, have we considered that or an updated version of that similar to the trail guide?
Yeah, I'll start with this, and if the staff wants to jump in, they can. My understanding is we do not, but the street map, and it's not going to be called a street map anymore. I would look at it more of a park and facilities guide, but it will be more focused, I think, on the direction that you're insinuating here is to do a better job at the parks and facilities. But right now we do not have that. We are starting with a brochure, which is basically the map, which will highlight the parks and facilities and also the programs. And then we have contemplated doing a similar as the trail guide, do a park and facilities guide. So that is on the table if the board is interested.
Yeah, because I can almost guarantee you, just from the feedback I've gotten on the trail guide and how useful it seems to be to people, if you had a park guide, just like with the trails, that was 1 page per park, just like this is 1 page per trail or 1 page per facility, I just think that would be easier on the public. And I think we'd be hitting another home run if we did that. So I just wanted to toss that out there.
I think that that's a good idea. I think the staff and I would agree. What I'd like to do is to see how the brochure goes, or the map, the upgrade. If we think we can get more out of, in addition to the map, if we want to do a parks and facilities guide, we can certainly do that as a part of this effort.
Yeah, just to piggyback on those. Sorry,
I'm sorry.
Just to piggyback real quick on those comments. One of the things that is super important in making sure that we can foundationally pull off that type of document is to make sure that we've got the proper amount of photos, high stock quality type of professionally taken photos. That's actually priority 1 and 2 right now on the obtaining photos, is visiting each of the parks and making sure that we've got them. So our analysis has told us we're not satisfied with the total amount of photos that we've got at parks. We're tackling that over the next couple of months. So foundationally, we're starting those steps for you.
Right, and I think that's great. I mean, I think upgrading the street map thing is great, but I think ultimately that's something that someone looks at and maybe winds up tossing, and it isn't anything special, whereas this trail guide is definitely something special based on the reaction from the community. So that's why I bring that up about the park guide. And I do appreciate your comments, Richard. So, all right, the next question I have, and this is going to get into my next set of comments. Is it easy to go back to the slide that has the trail guide and the activity guide on there? Because my questions have to do with those. Are we able to do that?
Sure, give me 1 second. Is that the one you're looking for?
Great, thank you, awesome. I was about ready to hold mine up that I have next to me here, so this is much easier.
No worries.
So I'm going to start off with the repetitive one, but I just have to keep emphasizing it. When you look at the trail guide, the only thing that's distracting about the whole thing on the cover is, again, the stick figure things that look to me like puppets that you pull a string on next to the Rancho Simi with the hills on top of it. It just, again, we do a lot of things that are so special. And I just hope before this whole thing is over, we at least take another look at the logo, because that is just a distraction on that guide. And the other comment I'm going to make about the logo that was less of a concern of mine before, but the more I look at it and try to get myself to like it, the more I don't. And on the logo, underneath Rancho Simi, where it says Recreation and Park District, I mean, for a lot of people, you're looking at that and it's like an eye test to see if you can even see what it says there. And for people to have to strain to have to identify that it says Recreation and Park District, again, it just does not make for an ideal logo. And I can't let it pass without mentioning that. So the next thing, if we can now move to the activity guide. So, I went through this a couple times. Again, I think overall it's a great product, I do love on the cover, I guess it's about 9 different photos we have there. I think that really pops, and I think that really makes for a great cover. The problem I have with the cover, and again, it seems to me rather than settling on mediocrity, we should be looking to excel as much as we can. There's 2 problems I have with the cover. If you think about this, and I think back to the high visibility campaign that Brian Dennert and I ran in when we ran for park board, and I remember knocking on all those doors and talking to people. And even now, when I run into people at functions, there's so many people who still think that the park district is part of the city. And we're feeding into that if we stick with this as our cover. I understand, if I'm not mistaken, where it says Simi Valley Activity Guide in Oak Park, that probably would say Oak Park Activity Guide. Am I correct?
Correct.
Right. And so I understand why we're identifying it that way. But if you don't know, if you're just someone in the public getting this, and you're getting this in the mail at your house and you're looking at it, the first impression you're going to get when you pick that up is not that this is from the park district. You're going to think the city sent this out. Simi Valley Activity Guide is what pops the most. And so that takes away from the whole concept of consistent quality branding. And so I think the idea of the cover is great. I know we want to differentiate between Simi Valley and Oak Park, but when you're looking at this, and then you look kind of at the middle and it says 60th anniversary, and you're kind of squinting to see the logo with the stick figures to the left, and that's how you're figuring out that it's from the park district. And there's barely anything identifying this as being from the park district, but yet Simi Valley is clearly identified. We're the Rancho Simi Park District, and this is coming off the way it's presented in its cover as if it's from the city, and that almost defeats the purpose of the fact that we're trying, we are a great district, we are independent from the city, and so that's just something I would look at in future covers, because I think I understand why it's happening. I think the photos on there are just awesome. I think it makes for a great background for the cover, but I do think it's something that for future quarters, I believe it's a quarterly publication, correct? For future quarters, I would find a way to fix that, because when you look at this, if you're someone that doesn't know better, if you're just, the average citizen out there that wants to enjoy the parks and may not know that there's a park district separate and apart from the city, this looks like the city's sending it out if you're sending it out in this fashion. And I just point that out as constructive criticism, because that's the first thing that comes to mind or comes to the eye when you see it. And so what otherwise is a 99% awesome guide kind of loses out on that 1% where it gives that perception. So those are my questions and comments. And by the way, great work. I do think, I really do. I mean, everything is improving greatly in terms of the outreach. I definitely think we're moving in the right direction. I applaud all of you on that.
Chair, if I could, thank you for the comments, and I appreciate the constructive criticism, because this is a team effort, and in this first year, or even first year and a half, we want that input from the board, and we will make those adjustments as they're recommended, and they're good ideas. So thank you for the good ideas.
Ed, a question I have for you is, we gave the staff flexibility to reinterpret the logo in a variety of ways, which means after a year, we'll be able to see it in a wide variety of media. Do you want to consider at the end of the year looking at them? Like after 1 year of it, the marketing plan, and seeing the trees, no trees, the different versions of the logo, and then discuss at the end?
I'll take any offer to look at that logo again under any circumstances, absolutely. And I do want to say, in all seriousness, I do think when I see it on social media, and I see the version without the stick figures, I do think it's a sleek logo. I still don't think it's an ideal logo, because you have the thing where you're squinting to see Rancho Simi Recreation and Park District. I'd almost just leave that off completely or do some revision to the logo. That's just, but yeah, I absolutely, at whatever point appropriate or anyone else on the board feels it's appropriate, I would love to take a look at that again. So absolutely.
That could just be increasing the font size for Recreation Park District, correct? That would satisfy what you're mentioning, Dan?
I like the concept of revisiting the logo after a period of time. Let's take and look, see what applications we may use it over the course of the next year. But I'm absolutely open to not, I think it's important we're getting the process in place and we're getting the structure in place to do a better job at promotions and marketing. I think that will continue to enhance over the next 6 months. But I'm absolutely open to the idea of kind of a revisit of the logo. Once we have this stuff in place and once we get, the structure of this thing going and we get the resource dedicated to it, changing the logo to something new, it'll take a little bit of work, but it won't be that much work because all the underlying stuff is in place. So if the board would like, we can definitely revisit the logo, but give us a little time to get this foundational stuff in place. And
right. And Brian, I appreciate that the board made a decision on the logo. So I'm not, even though I would love to do it tonight, I appreciate why we need to take some time and look at the different versions. I'm totally fine with that. And I appreciate that recommendation. I think the more immediate concern of the two that I had is everything's, again, the trail guide is awesome. The activity guide is an improvement over something that was already popular before. And I just don't want us to miss the boat. That's something that I would try to look at for the next edition even. I just don't want us to miss the boat and on the idea that, we should be branding ourselves and not making it look like something's coming from the city. So that would be my comment on the activity guide.
We'll look at that change for the next edition.
Any other board members?
I appreciate all the hard work people are putting into this. It's, that's all.
You, Kate?
Thank you very much.
Josh, did you have anything?
Yeah, sure. I was just going to say I've also been seeing the results and echo Brian and Ed's comments on how great it's been, and Kate's as well. I've noticed social media has massively increased, especially just over the last 2 weeks. Some of the posts are, you're seeing four times plus the amount of regular engagement. I also want to shout out I think it was an intentional special and adaptation of the logo for the Memorial Day post. I think in place of the trees, it had the red poppies for Memorial Day. And I think that was a very good use of adapting. Yeah. So.
I'm interested in seeing the data that can be presented to us and just telling us what the most popular posts were for the last month. I don't need that to be every month, but the reason I mention it is, Ed, you mentioned a centralized version or a staff member, and I see the value in that, but I wouldn't want it to slow it down where it was so centralized. So the school district has a central person for communications, but many people could. So I'm just imagining Danielle's out at a concert in the park and Kelly's not working that night, but she wants to post a picture that maybe she doesn't need to go to a committee to do that. Just to let the community know to get down there and it's the event starting. So if there is a centralized person, I don't want it to have to be official to a committee where different staff members might be able to interact with it.
I agree with that. I agree with what you just said.
Nice. And then I'd like to see a spotlight on classes. Like, I know that we have a lot of classes that might be impossible to do. So Danielle, if that's impossible to do, feel free to ignore it. But I'm just thinking like our instructors, if there's a picture of them doing the activity, the drawback is collecting those photos. Maybe they need to submit them, but it's more than just saying, here's the activity in a flyer, but here's the person. And some of these people have been doing it for many years. So, people know who they are and it's an authentic picture.
Absolutely. We can certainly work on instructor highlights.
Then I had feedback on the use of our Facebook page. To my knowledge, we weren't using the tabs button often for events. So we post an event, we'd have all the information there in a Facebook post, and it was widely shared. So That's not a criticism, but there's an events tab that we could consider using. And then you could click that you're going. And then on Facebook, the day of the event, it might say you have an upcoming event. And it could also show like which one of your friends are going and that many people are going to be at the event. And then the photography, I know you told me before, but who's in charge of that? You said there's like a committee looking at it.
Yeah, Richard is actually our main liaison for that. So he works directly with the photographer as well as identify some of the needs that we have.
So Richard, if someone had a collection of photos to share that they're willing to allow us to use for free, they would just email you to figure out how to get them to you?
Absolutely. If they want to reach out to me directly, we'll arrange a time and place for them to be able to give us the rights to it. And we've worked on a way to share that amongst all the staff digitally through Office 365. So we can have those very readily available.
Then Ed, a park guide. That's a wonderful idea. If I was going to see a park guide, though, I would like to see it from different perspectives. So one perspective is somebody planning an event. They need to know if there's bathrooms. I know it's not the most exciting thing to put in a park guide, but that's one of the considerations, especially for people with young kids. And then another thing is I'd like to see it from a kid's perspective. If we're going to commit to a park guide, that we would describe the equipment from a kid's perspective, like the best slides around, or like Mayfair Park. Look at the dinosaur equipment. Because I know from an adult perspective, we might see it differently than a kid. And we could even get quotes, like just a line, like, what's your favorite thing about this park from our after school program? So like first name, last name, initial, try the swings at this park. So if a kid's looking at it, they're going to tell their parents, oh, I heard that there's a zip line at Mayfair Park. I want to go see that. And if there is going to be a park guide, we can include flora, fauna, just like in describing it. This park has these type of animals or these types of trees, so that they're learning about the local environment. This is a verbal report, so that means there's no action to be taken, but we might need to summarize our actions. Dan?
Yeah, Chair, if I just wanted to mention that the new rec software, a big key to this is ease of ability to do business with us. So between the website upgrade, the rec software, and the marketing plan, that'll be the next 6-month push, is that when you want to, do something with the park district, it's how easy you can find that and register for it and get signed up. So I did want to mention that in addition to this, the rec software implementation and the functionality of it versus what we have here is also going to be a driver of folks meeting the goals of increased participation in our programs and use of our facilities. So I didn't want to that's a big part of the plan too over the next 6 months.
And I like Ed's idea of a park guide, but because I'd like to see it done right, my suggestion is not a rush on it.
So Chair, I think this isn't an action item. We have a list of all of the things that the board was commenting on and wants to see suggestions for us. So I think we'll take that list and do those things. We'll build those things into the plan as the individual board members have asked for. Each of those things sound like good ideas. And I think all of them can be built into the rollout and implementation of our plan as we continue to enhance it going forward. So we'll just take the list and start doing those things, if that's okay.
Yeah, I did like, Josh, I know you mentioned it, the poppies for Memorial Day. And I like that we can see the logo remixed in a variety of ways. Do we have a plan to post for Pride, like with a rainbow?
Yes, we have Pride Month, and we also have the 4th of July logos in draft form. So we'll be rolling those out for June and for July for Independence Day.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Josh?
Yeah, sorry, just to piggyback also on Brian's comment about spotlighting instructors. I also don't think it has to stop at instructors. I think oftentimes the best PR campaigns are actually hyper specific. And then by personalizing that, it expands to a broader audience. So while the ideas for instructors, I think you could also do that, in multiple regards outside of the specific classes and courses too. Although I think instructors and all of that make it really easy, but I think spotlights and making it kind of targeting very specific communities in Simi Valley of something of like, hey, this is great for you. I think also makes it easier for others to see that and get connected with those communities and connect to the park district itself.
Yeah, Josh.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. As part of our acquisition of photos, we've organized the effort of a long-term goal. Everything that both you and Brian have requested is certainly in the long-term goal. Obviously, one thing that we're waiting on is photos that won't provide an expiration date. And anybody in a mask right now certainly does that. So as those types of guidelines become lifted, we're going to get a bit more aggressive in the personal side of recreation.
I'm thinking like, what made me think of this is if you put together an ad that said, take karate, you could describe the night of the week, how much it costs, and those are important questions. But if you have a picture of Bruce Conaguy and it says take karate and has the same information, then somebody that has no consideration of taking a class at this point, but he's a legend, would still maybe click like on that post and then trigger the algorithm to share it with more people.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, that brings us to item C, status of the district's response to the COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic, verbal report.
Thank you, Chair and Board of Directors. We've had no complaints and no COVID positives within the organization. I've participated in several, I guess, call them lobbying calls with state representatives and local folks regarding COVID relief funding. June 15th, as far as we know, we're back to normal with a few exceptions. As we understand it now, everything's back to normal. Mega events, indoor and outdoor, which indoors is more than 5,000 people, will still have restrictions. We do not have any indoor events of more than 5,000 people, so that doesn't impact us. And outdoor events of more than 10,000 people, and we don't currently run any events that are more than 10,000 people. So those couple of exceptions don't really apply to us. There is a masking exception. We're still waiting for clear guidance on that, but the way we understand it basically is that if you're vaccinated, you do not have to wear a mask after June 15th. If you are not vaccinated, you're still required to wear a mask. So the staff and I, both from an employee perspective and also from a customer's perspective, are going to put together, or in the process of putting together, a policy for mask wearing for employees and customers that is in accordance with the guidelines that we're getting. The other small exception is the ASC, the After School Club, going into August next year and September when school starts. We're not entirely clear on what how the school is going to operate. So I know Dr. Poplinski had put some information out today on what that could potentially look like, but we will probably have a better idea of that later in June or into July, and we can report back to the board what the after school club operation might look like. So that's that. The board meeting after June 15th, what I was planning, unless I hear otherwise, was the June 17th meeting would be all in person by the board. And then at the June 15th meeting, I was planning on having an agenda item where the board could discuss public attendance at our meetings moving forward. So on June 17th, we'd be all in person, and then at that meeting, you guys could have a discussion on public attendance, and then we could also touch a little bit about the long-term relative to what does long-term look like relative to Zoom and public participation. So that was the plan for the June 17th meeting relative to COVID.
I see questions from Kate and then Elaine, or comments. Kate?
I just have one question on our policy for if you're not vaccinated, you have to wear a mask. How are we going to check this? Is it an honest?
That's part of what we're working through, and we'll probably be getting some guidance on that. I mean, everybody's going to have this issue. There's options. We could ask and trust. We could have them fill out a form. If you're attending a class or you're in an event, you fill out a form that says, I'm vaccinated, you check the box, or I'm not. If you're not, you have to wear this. We could go so far as to ask for their vaccination card. So I think there's still a little bit of that to be from from a industry perspective, or from, what's going on. There's a little bit to be learned there still as we do that. But I could see several options on how we can,
Okay.
get the knowledge and enforce it if we need to.
Okay.
Elaine?
Well, I was going to ask the same question as Kate. I wouldn't want us to be in a policing situation. I mean, it should be people at their own word, I guess.
I understand that perspective for the public, because if the public's coming to use a facility for a class, that might make it more difficult to figure it out. But I am interested in the perspective of staff perspective. If staff is working with children who are not eligible to be vaccinated yet, that they would either wear a mask or get vaccinated and provide evidence of that. So if you're working in an after-school club with children that are under age 12 and they can't get vaccinated, that the staff member would either get vaccinated or wear a mask to protect the people that they're serving. Ed?
Right. I have a question on a different topic that Dan brought up. I don't understand why we need to put on the agenda again whether to attend meetings in person. We've decided that before. And again, my preference would generally be to attend whenever I can. But if we're legally have the option of being on Zoom to attend a meeting, and there's a need for a board member, or if a board member is ill, COVID or not, and that option's available, we should have that option. We've already had this discussion. We had this discussion a couple months ago.
I'm talking about the public, not board members.
I
do we
see.
allow
Okay.
the public back in meetings? Do we allow them?
Okay, I
next
understand.
month?
I thought you were talking about the board.
No,
Okay.
the public. Yeah.
Okay.
I know that we're going to discuss that June 17th, but as you prepare the board report for that, I'm interested in the public being able to attend in person, but I'm also interested in them to be able to continue to participate by Zoom.
That's what I was going to agendize for a discussion on the 17th, so we could figure that out, what you guys want.
Any other questions or comments?
Let me just comment. There is legislation going forward on how public meetings can be held and how the public can still continue to, agencies should continue to have the Zoom option available to them. And it's part of the Brown Act. I mean, we're going to have to comply with whatever that legislation comes out.
And I get there's two parts to that. One is board member participation, but the other one is public participation.
Actually, yeah, and the public participation has two parts too. That's the in-person. What Lane is suggesting is we need the legislation under the Brown Act that will allow us to use Zoom permanently. So we may be in a situation where we got the board, we allow the public to attend in person under COVID rules and also Zoom, but there's a long-term approach where there's got to be some changes to state law that would allow us to permanently use Zoom. That may have to wait a little bit, but what I would bring back on June 17th is a detailed discussion of all of these perspectives and then where that legislation is relative to permanent Zoom meetings.
And then Dan, I saw the email from Brittany in HR for people to provide evidence if they're an employee.
Correct.
And that would cover our after school clubs.
Yeah, and we're doing that because the masking requirement in California is still effective June 15th. So that was an email that said between now and June 15th, you've still got to wear a mask. After June 15th, we'll be putting in the new policy.
And then, but we don't know if after June 15th, if an unvaccinated after school club worker would need to wear a mask or not?
That's what your staff and I are working on right now, is figuring that out relative to getting mask mandates, but also seeing what the guidance is. So you have the policy or what CDC says or what the California Department of Public Health says, but we anticipate that the industry or the public and businesses and everybody will be putting together some recommendations. So we're waiting to get that from folks that are grappling with the same thing. I'd like to have that information as we develop our policy locally and for the district. So that's why I'm saying we're not quite there yet, because we're waiting to get some of that information and some of that expertise passed along to us.
The reason I bring that up is, the first reason is to keep kids safe. And as a part of keeping kids safe, we want them to be in school. If they test positive, and even if they have no health effects, then that's kids are quarantining, classes are closed, after school club programs are closed, sports are closed as they wait for that. So it'd be a lot easier to just keep them safe.
So Brian, you're saying continue to do masking?
For the
after
only
the 15th?
unvaccinated, not for the students, whatever the guidance is on that, but for employees while they work around students. Or
What if the employees are vaccinated?
Then they wouldn't need to.
Okay, you're just talking about unvaccinated employees.
Right.
Absolutely. Anybody that's not vaccinated, to our way of thinking, anybody, whether you're an employee or a student, has to wear a mask if you're not vaccinated. If you are vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask. That's generally the guidance right now, but I want to see how some folks are implementing it in practice.
I don't know the guidance for young kids, but I know the guidance for employees, or that's the part I was commenting on.
Yeah. Our plan for employees, again, it's not firm yet. Our plan for employees is if you're vaccinated as an employee in the organization, you don't have to wear a mask. If you're not vaccinated, you have to comply with the masking guidelines. Yeah.
Is there any other comments or discussion of that?
I could editorialize since I put.
Elaine, you're on mute.
Elaine, you're muted, Elaine.
Probably a good thing. I was just saying it, the way it's written up, it puts everybody in a very difficult position, business or public agencies, on how to proceed.
Yeah, there is a lot of waiting for direction. Well, that brings us to continued business. There is none, which brings us to new business. New business item A is public hearing and approval of resolution 2009 approving engineer's report, confirming diagram and assessment and ordering levy of assessment for fiscal year 2021-2022.
Thank you, Chair, Board of Directors. Ms. Pennington and our consultant, Ms. Barnes, will present the staff report.
Before we do that, is any board member needing a break? Are we good to continue?
I'm good.
All right, let's continue then.
On May 20th, 2021, the board set a public hearing to receive the public's input into the annual assessment process. Notice of this public hearing has since been published, which indicates it will occur today, June 2nd, 2021. After receiving any public comment, the board will determine whether the public interest and necessity require the ordering of a levy of assessment for fiscal year 21-22. As Dan mentioned at the start of the meeting, the second chart listing the assessment options on page 2 of the staff report has been updated. It was sent to the board this afternoon and posted in the agenda packet on the district's website. There was a transposed number in the budget amount under option 2. It should read $1,996,327, and I do apologize for this oversight. Also, a 6th option was added to the chart for the board to consider, and in just a few minutes, we will share that chart for everyone on the call to review. So at this time, I would like to introduce Susan Barnes. She's from SCI Consulting, and she will review the assessment rates and options.
Okay, thank you. And I don't know if you're going to share screen to show the charts that are in the.
Yeah, why don't we go ahead and share the screen as you're talking, Susan, then you can walk the board through the options. So if we could get the share screen with the options.
You're muted, Teresa, if you were talking to us.
No, I just wasn't sure if I'm sharing my screen.
I can. So you want to start with part 1 in the staff report?
Chart one shows the calculation of the CPI and chart two is the options. So where would you like to start, Susan, with the calculation or the options or?
Well, she's got it there.
Okay, so yeah, we can start with the, sorry, my screen is flashing. Okay, so this is just, I'm sorry, my screen keeps flashing, so it's hard for me to see the numbers here. So maybe it's better if someone else shares instead.
Susan, was the issue? I can see it.
Yeah, but my whole screen keeps going dark and then coming back and going dark and coming back, so it's really making.
Mine just did that.
Teresa,
So
Teresa Pennington, can you share the first chart?
Sure. Just waiting for Alex to allow me to share. 1 second. Actually, that's the second one. Let me pull up the first one, sorry. There we go. There's chart one.
Okay, so the purpose of this chart is just to help to explain how we got to the CPI carryover, because I know there was some question about where that came from. It's just for your convenience. We do have history going back further than this, but just to show what the last 5 years have been. If you look at the 2018-19 year, you can see that the CPI was above 3%. And the largest increase that you can take as far as the maximum rate that's allowed for you to charge, that maximum amount can only go up by 3%. So you can see there it was 3.6%. And so 3% was applied to the maximum rate. And then you can see that the carryover, that 0.6% became the carryover of CPI that had not been used in that year. Then in the 2019-20 year, that was the second year in a row where the CPI was above 3%. Again, the maximum rate that you could charge in that year went up by 3%. And then that additional 0.24% got added to the carryover. And that's why you can see in the year 2021, the CPI carryover were those two amounts added together, which was the 0.84%. In that year, the CPI was actually just a little bit under 3%. And so we did use just a little bit of that CPI carryover so that you could increase the maximum rate by 3% again that year. And you can see then the CPI, the change in the CPI carryover went down, but by that small amount, the 0.04%. And that's how we got to the fiscal year that we're contemplating now, where again, the CPI was below 3%. And then we could add to that the total carryover that we still had of the 0.8%. And that's how we got to the amount that you could increase the maximum rate for this year is the 2.25%. So just wanted to show where that came from and how we got to those numbers and how we got to the maximum rate that you could charge being the $40.12. Again, it's 40.127 technically, but we don't round up because if we round it up, then you're technically being a little bit above the amount that you could charge. So we always round down to the penny instead of rounding up and saying it's 40.13. So just wanted to show you where that all came from, so that when we go to the second chart and we're talking about what the maximum rate that could be charged this year, you can see where that came from. So then on the second chart, this is just showing different ways, different amounts that you might have in your budget for the assessment district and the rate that would be resulting. and what that percent increase would be. And so it's, of course, up to the board to decide what you think is the appropriate budget amount based on what your needs are and your desires for your community, and the resulting rates that happen because of that. So in one case, if you look at option one, if your assessment budget was about 1,967,000, that results in the rate as being the same as it is in the current year. And so that's one option that's being presented here. If your assessment budget was 1,996,000 and change, that results in a rate that comes out to the current year CPI, if you apply just the current year rate without any carryover. Then option three, if your assessment budget was a little over 2 million, that would result in the rate shown here, which is the rate you would get if you took your current year CPI and apply it to last year's maximum rate, because last year you did not charge the maximum rate, right? You just kept it the same as the rate you charged in the year prior to that. Option four, again, is just a little bit more than that. That would be if you took the current year rate or the current year CPI plus that carryover amount and applied it to last year's maximum rate. And this is the 4012, which is again the maximum amount that you could charge in this year. So this 2 million and change, that's the maximum amount you could charge. Then option five, you can of course say that, we don't actually need any money from the assessment this year. We're not going to do any of these projects. And we're not going to charge anything. That's certainly a choice that you have. And then option six, again, this is a little closer to the 2 million. This would result in a rate if you took the current rate plus the CPI and the CPI carryover. So that's just sort of where all these different numbers and choices came from.
Dan, I'm looking at the report and it says receive staff's report. Does that mean we just received staff's report and would open the public hearing?
I think the process there is in the mid between the two charts in the report, Brian. Receive the report, open the public hearing, receive the tested money, close the public hearing, and then consider the options and provide direction.
So is that now I'd call on public comment, correct?
Correct. You'd open the public hearing. So you'd bang the gavel and say you're opening the public hearing.
Going to open the public hearing on this item. Is there any members of the public that would like to speak to this item? You could unmute yourself or raise your hand. Clarify, Dan thought I was knocking on the wall. We're sharing a wall, but he said pound the gavel. I don't have a gavel with me, so. Not seeing any public comment. That closes the public hearing portion of this. And that would bring us one last time. Any member of the public want to speak? Dan, you don't see anybody on this call, on the Zoom call that you think was here to speak on this, do you?
I do not see anybody. One last call for anybody that wants to speak on the assessment district public hearing item.
Not seeing any. That will close public hearing and bring us to consider approval for one of the following options. Any board member questions or comments?
I'll comment.
Ed, what's your comment?
Sure, I'll comment. I'm not going to go through this in detail since we did that at the last meeting. The only two options that I'll consider voting aye on or yes on would be option 1 or option 5. I don't think it would be right to increase a tax on the public, especially in light of the pandemic and the restrictions. that hurt our residents, whether it's business owners, employees, whatever the case may be, other obligations that they had. I just in good conscience can't see doing that, especially when we missed opportunities to raise other rates like golf rates more than we did and raise them earlier than we did. So to me, it would be totally unfair and unconscionable to do that to the public. So I could vote yes on number 1, where we go with the assessment and don't increase it, or on number 5, where we don't have the assessment at all. I have on a couple of occasions in the past voted for the increase in the assessment and did so reluctantly, but I certainly can't see doing it under these circumstances. I know there have been comments made by a couple of board members at a couple of the past meetings that, well, it's only an increase of whatever it is, 83 cents or 86 cents or whatever amount you pick. But there's really 2 problems with that analysis. Number 1 is that if you look back even at that chart that was up there, if you look back 3 or 4 years ago, the assessment was $35 and change. Now it's about to be $39 or $40. So over time, it adds up. And then the second part of it is, if you take the attitude of it's only, I don't care what you take, 10 cents or 20 cents or $1 or $2, if you take that attitude for anything that sounds good, and you start taxing everything, you'll be at 100% tax rate and you'll be at a pure socialist society. So for me, that argument doesn't carry weight. Some of the others do carry weight, and that's why in the past I have voted in favor of it a couple times, but I cannot see doing that this year. So those are my comments.
Ed, I have a question for you, not on
sure
your decision making, but earlier you expressed a concern about if it was a fair presentation of the options. Do you feel it was a fair presentation of the options tonight without like the staff guiding us towards one or the other, laying out the facts for us?
If this had been the only presentation we had, I would say yes. The problem is when this was initially presented, it was presented with a staff recommendation, and that staff recommendation wasn't withdrawn until there were a majority of members, I believe 3, that expressed interest in the recommendation. So if you were talking about in a vacuum just tonight, I would be fine with it. But if you look at the overall picture, that's where I have a problem with how we got to where we are tonight. However, I've moved past that. And having said that, again, I will not be voting to increase the assessment. I'm okay with voting to have the assessment without an increase, but I will vote no if there's any increase to the assessment. And I just wanted to make those comments. Does that answer your question, Brian?
Yeah. So it's a better presentation tonight. That's my interpretation of what you said. It was more fair.
If this was the only presentation we had, that would have been fine. I still would be voting the way I'm voting, but that would be fine. What I wasn't happy with is the way it all started off and sort of steered things in a certain direction.
Elaine, were you about to speak?
I think everyone knows where my position is, but what I look at is long-term. And our maintenance and costs and energy are all going to go up because we are in a kind of an inflationary situation. And I think the residents expect us to be, financially responsible to maintain the facilities that we do have. And I'm certainly not one to be tax happy. That's quite contrary to my basic philosophy. But in this case, if we don't look to the future, and maintain now, those maintenance costs are just going to continue to go up, and we'll be in a negative position, I'm afraid. And it's not easy, and I don't blame Director Avila for his position, but I think as a board member, I have to look at the long-term maintenance and quality of our facilities. And fees can go up, but then we have a situation like with COVID where we lost $2 million in fees. And this is what I'm looking at is And I know that it doesn't fly with Director Avila, but we can either go up 4.5 cents a month, 15 cents a month, 17 cents a month, or 7 cents a month. That's really what it amounts to under all these options. And I would say that most people would feel comfortable with any of those. I mean, our public, the people that we serve.
Kate or Josh? Kate?
Yeah, I'd like to echo my position on all these options. I could live with number 2, 1, 2, or 5. I could live with. And I just want to point out, it should be a big fat pain in the patootie to raise taxes. It should not be easy. Big fat double wide pain in the patootie is what it should be. You know, before now we have Proposition 218 and Prop 13 way back in the 70s. And before that, you know, senior citizens were being taxed out of their homes because there was no limit on the taxes that the local agencies could raise. That's wrong. That's not good. And it's true, local agencies over the years have had to figure out ways to scramble and meet revenues and increase revenues. Another way of looking at that is that public agencies have had to get creative in their spending and in their revenue generation. Not the worst thing in the world. So I'm saying 1, 2, or 5 for me.
Chair, if I could just take a minute to go through the options again, just to make sure everybody's clear and we're looking at the same numbers when we're talking about the options. Teresa, can you pop up the option chart again, the revised one with option 6? If we could share screen the option chart. Yep, thank you. So to the board, this is the revised chart, which added an option 6. We've talked about option 1 and 5, which 1 is the same rate with no increase, and option 5 is no levy whatsoever. Option 3 and 4 basically take a couple of options, but they add the 3% that the board didn't approve last year. So it would be a CPI this year plus the 3% that we did not approve last year. I think we've heard that the board is not interested in item 3 or 4, which gets you down to options 2 and 6. Ed had mentioned he's at 1 and 5 is his position. I just want to explain the difference between 2 and 6. And there's 2 different perspectives, and I'll just try to say it as neutrally as I can. Option 2 takes the current rate and it takes this year's CPI for the assessment district, which is about 1.45%. Option 6 takes the 1.45%, but adds 0.8 carryover from last year. And what that means is that the CPI was higher last year than 3%. So we are under the assessment district rules, and Susan can clarify or provide clarification where we can. So there's a calculation of this year's CPI, but we're allowed to add to the CPI any carryover as long as the CPI in total is, or the maximum amount is below 3. So option 2, you could look at option 6 as the CPI is a part of the CPI. You could make that argument. The 0.8 was a part of the amount you gave over last year. Or you can look at option 6 as the formula to calculate what we can do for a maximum increase CPI for this year. So that's the difference between 2 and 6. 1 includes the carryover from the previous year and 1 does not.
Anybody else need that screen shared?
I just also wanted to share that our budget is built at our current budget, which can be adjusted at final. Our current assessment budget is built at $2,003,400.
Chair Danner?
Yes.
I do want to make a comment. I want to further answer the question you asked earlier in light of what we just heard. Again, I reiterate that I will not vote for any increase, and that's why I said 1 or 5. I do think now, again, I do think the district manager is trying to advocate for number 6 because Vice Chair O'Brien had indicated 1, 2, or 5, and now the district manager is trying to emphasize 6 as opposed to 2. So I kind of withdraw what I said earlier.
Chair, if I could comment.
Sure, Dan.
I'm not advocating anything. I'm just making sure the board understands their decisions. And I want to make sure that Kate had the new chart with number 6 on it. She did understood. So I'm not advocating anything. I'm just want to make sure it's clear what the options are and how they were calculated.
Yeah,
Josh?
I just want to say I do understand the difference, and but I appreciate the clarification. And I still have mixed feelings about item 2. I'm not, but I could probably live with it if I had to.
Josh?
Sure. I think I would echo kind of the thoughts of Elaine. This is an inflationary period. I think it is important to maintain what we're doing to be able to maintain the parks, the recreation programs, and all of the other items we have on this upcoming budget. Saying that, I think my preference would be 2 or 6, but I'm 1 of 5. So those are my preferences.
I'm supporting item 6. It's an 85-cent increase. I had done the math earlier at a meeting and said 86 cents. That's because I rounded up. But to clarify, it's 86 cents for your entire household on equivalent. So a household of 4, mine, we're paying 85 cents total more. But let's not just talk about that cost, but if we don't pass it, we're still going to have the maintenance and we're still going to have the demands on our staff. My understanding is we would be able to absorb it immediately with capital projects. Like if the assessment went away, we'd be short term, we could cut things, but eventually it's going to cut into maintenance. And I don't see anyone telling Wayne to do less work. So it's going to cut into maintenance. It's recreation, not as much because those bring in money. It's going to be cut from the ranger program. Eventually, if we have to get to more and more cuts, and I'd rather do a gradual increase than a sudden cut. And the way I see it also is we're not recapturing everything from last year going forward. I understand the idea of last year not asking our community to contribute more, but saying that in future years that 1 year is going to be our new baseline. The problem I have with that is years from now, we're going to have increased bills. We're going to have increased cost. So I'm supporting item 6 for the long-term financial stability. Ed, I hear what you're saying about the fees, and you're right about that. That is another way to fund these. But I see that a fee, if you're making a profit from golf and then redirecting that to maintenance, then you're asking a golfer to cover maintenance at a facility they're not using. Similarly to when you're asking the public for 85 cents for broad benefits across the district. So I agreed with Ed on speeding up the implementation, the review of the fee schedule, but I'm supporting that. So we have long-term, the maintenance that we currently have and the ranger program that we currently have. If I think about what sets our community off better than some communities in our area, public safety, it's our schools and it's our parks. If you go to the difference between, say, Chatsworth, which is a nice community, Simi Valley, and Thousand Oaks, I don't want our parks to look like some of the parks in the valley where the grass isn't maintained. So I get what you're saying about it should be difficult to raise taxes. And I think it is, because we're debating 85 cents, but someone could have made the motion at the very beginning, but we didn't. We debated and discussed and did it in multiple meetings and went over details. So I support item choice number 6.
Hi, I just want to make one more comment.
Also, can we get out of the shared screen so I can see everyone better?
Oh, yes, thanks. Much better. I want to point out when I first got on the board, this was brand new, and all the other 4 members of the board had all been part of the board when this was implemented. So we didn't get presented with all these options clearly cut out like this. It was like, this is what we want to do and blah, blah, blah. And it was kind of like steamrolled through. So, and now we're not getting that. Now we're discussing it. Now we're considering options. I think that's an improvement over the way it was. And that's all I want to say.
Part of that's because I'm raising hell, Kate.
Director Dinner, would you like a motion?
Yes, please.
First, let me comment that my choice.
I'm sorry, Elaine, I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, I need a new webcam.
Yeah, I need new ears. That's, you know.
I just lost my screen. Oh dear.
We can hear you though.
Okay. My option is to go with, my motion would be to approve option 6, which is an increase of 85 cents or 2,011,831.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
And is there any discussion of that? Seeing no discussion, Gina, will you call the roll?
Director Abela,
No.
Director Freeman,
Yes.
Director Gray,
Aye.
Director, Vice Chair O'Brien,
No.
and Chair Denner.
Yes.
The motion carries with a 3-2 vote, with Director Abela and Vice Chair O'Brien voting no.
I just wanted to comment, I think it is a better process with the options and them laid out in total rather than presupposing a particular direction. So I just want to give the board the assurances that beginning with next year and throughout the process, we'll be presenting the assessment district as we have tonight.
Thank you. We're going to take a 5-minute break. It's 8:10. We'll be back at 8:15. And when we come back, we'll be on item B under new business.
Okay.
Seeing that it's 8:15, we're coming back to our meeting with new business. Item B, approval of an agreement for consulting services between the Rancho City Recreation and Park District and Henry Dong and Associates Incorporated for consulting architectural design and engineering services for the Activity Center Recreation Area Construction Project.
Thank you, Chair and Board of Directors. This is an exciting one. Director Nakaoka from Planning and Maintenance will provide the report.
Okay, Chair Denner, members of the board. I'm not going to reiterate the entire report because I did provide you with the complete history of the Activity Center from the purchase to present date. Just thought it was important for the newer board members that didn't have the history of the project. But what I am going to do is start from the approval of the floor plan and the architectural selection process. So at its meeting on September 30th, 2020, a revised conceptual plan for the Activity Center was presented to the Board of Directors. This plan maximizes the utilization of the existing floor space and contains modernized activities that can be utilized by a variety of park patrons. A detailed room-by-room listing of the activities is provided in your staff report, and a layout diagram of a conceptual plan that was accepted is attachment A. Based on the board's desire to move forward with the project, staff prepared a lengthy request for a proposal and solicited proposals from qualified architectural firms with a submission deadline of April 9th. 21 architectural firms received a copy of the district's RFP, and on April 9th, staff received 4 proposals from qualified architectural firms. Since the Park District selects architectural and engineering consultants based on their professional qualifications and experience, staff performed in-person interviews with 3 of the architectural firms that submitted the lowest proposal prices for the project. This interview was used to determine which architectural firm best fit the requirements for the project and the firm's ability to work cooperatively with Park District staff. Based on the proposals and in-person interview, staff is recommending Henny Dong and Associates be awarded the design consulting services contract for the Activity Center's recreation area construction project. Brief history on Henny Dong. Henny Dong has been in business since 1980. Its corporate office is in Woodland Hills, California. They've been there for most of that time. Some of their previous projects can be seen in Simi Valley. One of its corporate point offices off of First Street and forgot what just north of the freeway. They did the Business Park Center, which is called the Ridge Professional Offices in Agora Hills. I just visited them today because my dentist is in that building. They also designed a UPC gym in Lakewood, California. They have an excellent reputation with the city's building and safety department. They do a lot of smaller projects. They've done some work with the Simi Valley School District and some of the local private schools. They're very well known from what I've called on their for their references. They're very responsive during the design and construction project. The agreement that's attached to the staff report has been reviewed by Park District Legal Counsel. Also provided in the staff report is a brief chronological timeline for the completion of the project based upon tonight's anticipated award of contract. I have to say, in addition to the engineering services of $192,500, staff is recommending an allowance of $7,500 for reimbursable reprographics. That's all the plans they have to make for staff during the plan check process. In addition to that, I'm asking or requesting $25,000 be allocated for change order allowances made during the design process of the project that changes or modifies the scope of work for requested things by the Park District and not things by the architect. This brings the aggregate contract total value to $225,000. Adequate funds are in your budget for this year in the amount of $250,000 in the capital outlay fund. Staff is requesting that the board of directors review and approve the agreement for consulting services between the Rancho Simi Recreation and Park District and Henny Dong and Associates for consulting architectural design and engineering services for the Activity Center Recreation Area Construction Project in the amount of $200,000, which is the $192,500 for the design and engineering and $7,500 for reimbursables, and authorize the district manager to execute amendments to the design services agreement with the awarded firm on behalf of the district for changes made to the scope of services during the design process, not exceeding $25,000. And I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Wayne, whenever we see we don't go with the lowest bidder, we got to ask why. And I understand the one part of that was the reputation of the bid.
That is correct. Actually, you are awarding it to the lowest architectural firm just by chance, because during the interview process with the lowest bidder, which was Coast Architects, they missed a big portion of the contract, which was redesigning the HVAC system for the office area. Adding that in and their acoustical engineering brought up their overall or aggregate proposal to $215,000. While Henny Dong is still at $192,500.
Wayne, who caught that they missed that?
We did during the interview process. It was all three of us. We had some questions, specific questions we asked each one of the firms. And based upon their review of their proposal, I noticed that they just omitted one whole item. They didn't think it was relevant, I guess, to the Park District, but that item was identified in the RFP as a scope of work.
That's actually standard procedure when you have several bids like this. If somebody's way low, you ask them to review the bid. You give them the opportunity to review and revise.
Yeah.
Any other questions from board members?
Hello.
I have a question.
Elaine?
A couple things. This takes it all the way through the start of construction, right?
I mean, I didn't get that.
This takes it all the way through after building permit, so to the start of construction.
That's correct.
Correct. Okay. On the description, wouldn't we have to go to public hearing to planning commission or something? It's not on here.
Yeah, yes, we do. I think I listed it as one item on the staff report. Under the timeline, I put public notice and public review process. It's very short, but the city processing and review is 2 to 3 months, and that's where the administrative adjustment comes in.
Oh, it's going to be an administrative adjustment and not a.
Yes, we don't have to go to planning commission. We're going to do it. Currently, the city has agreed to do it under administrative adjustment because we are only dealing with the inside of the building, very few external improvements.
Other questions from board members? Elaine?
Looking at what we've suggested,
Elaine, you're on mute. You need to start over if you could, please. You're still on mute.
Elaine, you're still on mute.
Okay.
I keep clicking it off, it won't go off. As they go through the design process, doing the final design, I'm concerned that they're going to find we over-designed. We're trying to do more than we can fit into the space. I assume they'll come back and make recommendations to us.
We've shown the city the preliminary layout. They feel comfortable, since we're the park district, that we'll be able to do it successfully.
As we present.
And yes, if they recommend a change to the elements on the conceptual plan and it becomes different because we've over-designed, we will bring that back to the board. Oops, you're on mute again, Elaine.
Didn't even touch it, it just went.
And envision a couple of check-ins with the board at milestones, you know, first draft or second draft, and we'll come back to the board and review the plan with the board as it develops.
Okay. Thank you.
That's going to bring us to public comment. Any members of the public want to speak on this agenda item? Dan, you're not seeing anybody that you would anticipate is here to speak, do you? The reason I ask is
I'm looking, I do not, Chair.
I'm looking at the rest of the agenda, and I'm going to guess no one's here for the other agenda items. So if there's a member of the public you don't recognize, you do not?
Yeah, everybody here is here on a different issue, or they're from the Oak Park Committee listening in.
Okay. For Zach and Josh, when we had a committee meeting with staff, Ed and I were there, and some of the items that we discussed as a part of this is Ed suggested, and it fits into our vision, which is a place to go on a Friday night and stay, not just drop off your kids and go. But Ed, I didn't see it completely like that in the beginning, the suggestion you have for the gym. But the idea that you could have your kids take their class, you could go work out, and then you could eat together at the same location. That's pretty awesome. Ed, are you happy with the way that the gym looks on this plan?
Give me 1 second.
Third page.
Yes.
And then that's, if I'm looking at it correctly, Danielle might know, but what Ed mentioned about a gym, that gym for fitness, that's item X. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then Zach and Josh, one of my suggestions was that when we design it, we don't make it like Chuck E. Cheese, where it's blaring music all the time because there's many people with sensory issues. It doesn't need to have a soundtrack at all times. I mean, if there's an activity that needs music, awesome. But there are many people in our community that would appreciate that. I mentioned that the colors should be wisely chosen, and that if there's going to be depictions of animals, it should be local animals and local plants. The reason I'm emphasizing this is we had a presentation in our school about mountain lions, and high school students had no idea there's mountain lions in our area. But they can tell you about lots of animals around the world, whether it's kangaroos or giraffes, but not their local environment. So the environment is here, and the value of doing that is it helps us to educate them about what's here. I know it wasn't time, I should have asked this earlier, but Wayne, from a board's perspective, what could we do that would slow this down or speed it up? Because I would like this speed up, so I'm asking for feedback so I don't,
Speed it up. I don't have any ideas. I couldn't make any recommendations. My timeline is pretty tight to expedite it, to get it done as fast as possible. Delaying the project, I must admit, I think there's going to be some natural delays. I think my timeline of 6 months going through the city is probably a little short based upon their track record with the Park District. It took us 3 years to get into this building. We bought the building in 2015. We didn't move into it till 2018. That was part of the permit and design process just for the phase 1 area. It did take some time. I think at that time I was projecting 18 months and it went 18 months over.
Wayne, the phase 1 is the office space or the
The
maintenance?
office space. Phase 2 was the maintenance area.
Just stunned that would take that long to occupy office space.
There was a lot of work that was done though, all the glass walls and divisions of offices, and it was pretty extensive, I think. Plus there was air conditioning adjustments, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments before I make a motion? Josh?
Yeah, I'll just make a quick one. I don't know that this is the ideal time, but I'm happy to bring it up again whenever this project does come up. I do think it would be to the advantage of the community, like Brian was talking about, of comments on music and all of that. I also think the staff should take into consideration anything that would tie kind of like a high score or records of the community, of kind of tying like these are the best performances, or like you can have the most consecutive free throw shots, of like little things like that can be managed within it to keep people coming back or wanting to compete with each other, or proud that their name is on the wall for the week that they hold this record or that record. I think
Josh,
things
that's
like
awesome. I'm envisioning people competing for the obstacle course.
yeah, of like who can do the fastest time, and I think there's 1,000 different ways to have those specifics, but I would highly encourage something like that I think keeps people coming back Friday nights, and wants people to bring their friends to compete, and builds friendly competition and engagement with the area and trying new things.
Can staff participate, Josh?
I think as long as it's age appropriate.
Based on the intensity of the cornhole tournament, I think you have a board of competitors.
Dan can't play. Dan
Brian?
always wins.
That
Brian?
tournament was intense. Ed, what do you think?
Brian?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I know you're concerned about the colors. Are you thinking like have a little bit of dark green and some light green, maybe some olive green and teal green, some hunter green, some lime green? Is that kind of what you're thinking?
You missed forest and emerald, but yes.
Shades of green. We could have Brett Favre green too, right there.
There you go.
So many. I'm going to make a motion that we approve the contract, which is item 1 and 2. We reviewed it, so that brings us to 2. Authorize the district manager to execute amendments to the design agreement, and item 1 for the contract itself.
I'll second.
And we can do those items together, correct?
Yeah, you can, if you don't have a change to the recommendation, you can say move staff recommendation, and that incorporates the whole thing.
So I think I saw Ed with the motion, Josh with the second. Gina, will you call the roll?
Director Abela,
Aye.
Director Freeman,
Said yes. but
Director Freeman,
Elaine?
Dr. Freeman, you're
Aye.
Director Gray,
Aye.
Vice Chair O'Brien,
aye.
Chair Dennert.
Yes.
The motion carries with a unanimous vote.
Thank you.
That brings us to call for nominations. Item C under new business. Call for nominations of candidates to serve on the board of directors of the California Association of Recreation and Park District, or CARPD.
Thank you, Chair and Board. CRPD has a board of directors, and they are taking nominations for several seats. 2 positions for the director at large, 1 position for the administrator position, administrator rep. So with that, it's the board's option to nominate individuals for any of these seats. I'm sorry, president-elect, secretary, district at large, an administrator rep. Staff does not have any recommendations for you on who to nominate for any of these posts at this time.
So I'm not interested in it in this year, but is there a board member that is interested in it?
Already pulled in 6 different directions. So no.
I would say I'd be interested in it for future years, but this year I want to be spending my time more on this board.
Elaine, I think I saw you nod your head. You're not interested? But Elaine, because you do have experience with it, correct?
Yes.
If you could talk to Josh next time you happen to see him of what the benefits are so you could consider it for the future.
Well, as you know, 2 of our board members are past presidents of CARPD, Dean Hostetler and Mark Johnson. What's good is that the perspective you get of all the various park and recreation districts throughout the state and how fortunate we are, but also how different they are. And we learn a lot about their administration and their messaging and projects and things that all these districts do. And I think it's very educational.
Thank you. Being that there are no nominations, correct? Then Dan, we don't vote on that. We just move on to written communications and note.
Correct.
And do we take public comment on that? I can't imagine there is public comment.
You should take it. It's a separate item, so ask for public comment.
Is there any public comment on call for nominations of candidates to serve on the board of directors for the California Association of Recreation and Park Districts? Not seeing any. We'll move to written communications of note.
Thank you, Chair and Board. I did, there were some letters to staff. They weren't to the board regarding pickleball in Oak Park. So Sandy did package those up and sent them to the board as an FYI. So we did receive those and have forwarded those to the board. That's all I have.
Dan, can we also reply to those with giving them the dates of the Oak Park Advisory Committee meetings and tell them for things that are not direct to staff that they could attend those or give input there?
Sure. If you'd like to do that, we can do that.
There's some things that staff can address directly, but if they to say staff can address on these issues and with other concerns, please come to the advisory committee.
Okay.
Because if they came to me, I would say, oh, that sounds like a really good idea. Let's talk to the advisory committee. So maybe we could start with them instead.
Okay.
That brings us to reports by board members. We're going to go a different order this time. Josh?
Cool. All right. Mine's pretty short this time. I would just thank staff again for their work on the multitude of projects we've got going through. I'll repeat kind of some comments I made last week that it's fantastic whenever I step into a meeting or have a conversation with a community member, I'm able to talk about all the great work the staff is doing, the forward progress we're making, and oftentimes getting amazing feedback about the big changes that have been happening in the last year. I'll also just shout out that June is Pride Month, and I look forward to seeing the new adapted logo from the Park District. And I'll since we were talking about social media earlier, I did it before the meeting, and I'll just shout out that if any of you want to, on Facebook at least, you can invite your friends to like the Park District Facebook page, and that makes it easier to get our message out. It brings awareness to it. I know right before the meeting, I think I had 5 people. I got notified when they did like it, and it just makes it that much easier to get our message out and to promote these campaigns. And it's a really simple, easy thing that oftentimes, if you want something, sometimes all you have to do is ask. Yeah, so I'd encourage you all to try to do that on Facebook for the Park District.
Kate?
Yes, I had Ventura County Special Districts with Director Freeman, and we heard some information about the Energy Alliance, which was, to be honest, a little over my head, but not only because it's something I don't know, but I guess it's what that means. There was Jeannie sent Elaine and I a very nice article from the Camarillo Ranch Foundation website about our historical park and the depot. Go to the website, take a look, because it's a really good read. It's really neat. Really enjoyed reading it. And I also want to give another shout out to Jeannie and Carolyn Valdez, because my Red Hat group is going to have a tour of Strathern on July 9th, and they've set it up. All I did was call up and ask, or email and ask, and they got it straightened out. So, yay. And I still think we should be calling, instead of calling it Rancho Madero vacant lot, I still think we should be calling it Rancho Madero open space. I was kind of half kidding about that last time, but I still think it's a good idea, even if I was half kidding. That's all I have.
Elaine?
Okay, can you hear me? I'm not on mute. Okay.
Oh, you're good.
First, I had a CARPD legislative committee meeting, and the primary subject discussion was getting funding for special districts, particularly park and recreation districts. And there's about 45 legislators that have sent, maybe up to 60 now, to the budget committee to include special districts. For right now, it's just counties and cities. After the comment, at Ventura County Special Districts, our representative from CSDA was there, and she was not very hopeful because there is the feeling that we can get the money from the city or the county, a city or county. So I think there are some legislators.
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Could you?
There are some legislators that understand special districts, and there are those that don't understand special districts. So one good point that was made at CARPD Legislative Committee meeting was, since the schools are getting so much money, way beyond what their requirement is, maybe it's time to go back and to the legislature and do away with EREF, which takes money from all of us to give to schools. So that might be an issue that will be coming up, I think, probably in this next legislative session. Just a reminder, I did have CSDA legislative conference last week, and it was 2 days. It's all on Zoom, and I don't know, to be on a Zoom all day, 2 days is not, it's a little.
Yeah.
I mean, you could watch them at different times, breakout sessions, but they only are carried it over till the 27th. And I'm going to suggest to Elaine that they put the breakout sessions further, for another couple months, so we could all tune in to them, because there were some good breakout sessions. Saturday is.
You're muted. Oh, you're muted again.
On Saturday is Simi Valley Community Council. I sent you all information on the Zoom. Mike Kuhn will be honored. There are 15 honorees of volunteers being honored at Community Council Saturday on Zoom. So if you need, did everybody get the email?
Yeah.
You got it?
I saw that. Yeah, I've got a potential conflict, but it's Zoom, so I might be able to do both.
On Saturday morning.
Yeah.
Elaine, because you nominated him, I plan to attend, but if they ask anybody to speak to that, can you speak to that?
The way it's structured, nobody will be able to say anything.
Okay.
The awards will just be given out because there's 15 people. So there'll be all the comments, and and Keith and other dignitaries will be there as well. So I think with 15 people, it would be difficult. Okay, and I think that's it.
Ed?
So for me, basically, it was attending employee appreciation picnic lunch. I just want to thank the staff that put that together. It was awesome. Lunch from the Habit. There were some great activities. I do want to make a couple comments about one of those activities.
Oh yeah, what's that?
So cornhole. So I was fortunate enough to have Miguel as my teammate because it was random drawing, and we technically finished third place, but I really think if it wasn't for a couple things, we would have been first place. Now, it was a double elimination, so before we went on our winning streak, we kind of blew a big lead to Dan's team, but I really think we got distracted because they weren't keeping score the way you normally do for cornhole. They turned it into like some horseshoes game or whatever. So I'm sticking to that reason for the fact that we blew our lead in that game. And then there is a second thing. I truly believe if Miguel had a better teammate, that would have been a championship team. So that's all I have.
I didn't skip anybody, correct? Because I almost skipped Ed 2 weeks ago, and I still feel bad about that.
Oh, can I add one quick blurb? I do want to thank everybody who donated books through Emerging Leaders. The total was 2,300 books. I went out to them in the past week. Parkview and Knowles Elementary both got roughly 2 to 3 books per student that they'll have all summer to keep beyond the summer, but for this summer. Anyways, I apologize for interrupting, but that did occur to me.
Oh, that's some good work. The Trailblazers have meetings sometimes that we can meet with them to go over some goals and upcoming events. Zach, some of your fellow staff could tell you how to do that, but I'm interested in calling a meeting of the Trailblazers to just go over a few things. I did some Earth Day. Sorry, what?
No, I said absolutely. We can help facilitate that for you.
And then I did some Earth Day visits. Thank you, Danielle and Richard, for organizing those to our after-school clubs, and gave books to the award winners and got to meet with them. And at the same time, see the good work that our staff does. And it was a fun to be able to visit, especially after a long time of not visiting after school clubs, to see all the fun stuff they're doing. The Lou Roth Awards from the Simi Valley Education Foundation was at Strathern Park. And I've heard a lot of feedback, but specifically they thanked Jeannie Liz for putting together and organizing it under a short time frame. They were very happy with that, and they very much like the facility. So they might return to it at a future date if it works. So Dan, thanks also for working on that, because many of the people asked me, can we do it again this next year? And I said, well, that's up to the foundation if they like to and what they need. But the people that attended were very happy with the facilities. We hiked Hummingbird last week. We took this week off. We have a board meeting tonight, but we'll be back at it next week if anyone wants to join in with us.
Although Chair Dinner, next week we have our special needs ad hoc committee. So,
oh yes,
right?
Yeah. So we will not be. The other staff members might be, or other people might be out there, but we will not.
Well, staff can go without us. We don't have to be there.
True.
We might want to be there. It'd be nice, but we can't.
And then at the employee appreciation lunch, I offered to join some maintenance crews just to learn more about their jobs. Last summer, I wanted to do that, but there's so many restrictions in place. So Wayne, normally we ask you to do more and more work, but this time you'll put me to work a couple times. I know how to drive a manual, but it's been a while. I'd rather get a rake or a shovel, but I'll talk to you about that later. That's it for me. That brings us to closed session.
District manager first, I think.
I was flipping pages. Report by district manager. Dan?
Yes, Chair and Board, a few items. Director Gray, following up on the Facebook page likes, one of our measures is not only Facebook, but email addresses, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. So we are tracking that, and we'll actually be doing some promotional campaigns as part of that to encourage likes and the such. So we're on the same page and appreciate the comment. The July 4th event, we posted that, but since then the Simi Valley Days Committee has posted that the July 4th fireworks are happening. The Acorn also did an article on it, and we are in contact with the representatives of the Simi Valley Days Foundation, which is putting on the event this year. We're working through the plan. The good news is that with the lifting of the restrictions on June 15th, it looks like it's going to be Plan A, which will be, we can do more than just shoot fireworks in the air. We can gather and congregate in the park. So that's good news. The skate park, similar to reporting out on COVID, I'm continuing to do that. We haven't had any issues or problems at the skate park since the last time we met. I did want to thank the board on behalf of the employees. We get together twice a year. One is our holiday event and one is the spring picnic that we had on Friday. So I do want to thank the board for supporting that event on behalf of the staff. It's nice to get together with everybody a couple of times a year, and we couldn't do that with the boards without the board's support. Just to re-mention it on the reaching out on the podcast to the Ranch Radio and the other group, we do have a plan in place. I just need to get a little time to put that in form and then share that with the board. So I'll be doing that over the next week. So that is in process. I wanted to, there's a few items that the board has asked for follow-up, and I just wanted to make sure the board know we had those calendared and about when. One is the fee study. We did meet with the fee study consultant, and we're targeting the first meeting in August to do the fee study with a fallback date of the second meeting in August, but we're really, we're hopeful that we can make the first meeting in August. It's the board's pleasure. The board had mentioned that we're wanting to revisit the Earth Day award criteria. We have some time on that, so I'll probably bring that back in the fall. Remember, we wanted to tighten up the Earth Day award, so we'll be bringing that back. Director Dennert had asked that an item come back to consider adding a youth advisory board connection to the board of directors. I'm hopeful that'll come back at one of the August meetings for the board to discuss. Director Avila had mentioned moving board or asked that we consider moving board meetings to Wednesdays. I hope to bring that back. I think Ed had said starting next calendar year, but we'll bring that back hopefully in August as well. So the board can discuss that. As part of the budget process, we talked about taking a deeper dive into year 2 of the CPI, which could also play into some of the requests we've had at the last meeting and also this meeting. So I envision bringing back a deeper kind of discussion of the CIP as part of a meeting in August. And then the one-wheeler item that is slated to be heard in the next few meetings. So just want to let the board know that those things are happening. The other one was the disc golf and tees at Chaparral Park. The chair had requested that that be reviewed by the Oak Park Committee. So that will be on their next agenda. So just want to let the board know that all those things are on our calendar and will be before the board in due time. We do have a special meeting. So if you recall at the last meeting where we have the special needs ad hoc committee meeting, but there was some interest expressed from other board members that they would like to be a part of that. In order to facilitate that, we're going to have the meeting as a special meeting of the board next Wednesday at 6 o'clock. It will be a Brown acted meeting. It will be properly noticed. It will be communicated to the community, but that will legally allow all 5 board members to participate. So we do plan on doing that in lieu of just an ad hoc committee meeting.
Josh?
Your next meeting on June 17th, Thursday. We've got the appropriations limit. We've got notice for the budget public hearings. We've got the preliminary budget. We've got, if you'll recall, the board authorized us to prepay CalPERS last year, which I think saved the district about $28,000. So we're going to ask for the same authority from the board again this year. The MRCA, they usually come and run that. We're a partner agency, or we're a member of the JPA, so they come and get our approval for their budget. And then also the item that I mentioned about talking through or possibly making some decisions on when the public may return to attending our board meetings. So that's June 17th. I would like to get the board a feel from the board. July 1st is right around July 4th. The last 2 years, for lack of items, we've canceled the first meeting in July. There is the same opportunity this year if the board is so inclined to cancel our regular meeting on Thursday, July 1st, if you guys would like. And that concludes my report. The only committee meetings we have are the regular Historical Society Liaison Committee. Other than that, we don't have any committee meetings scheduled. that concludes my report.
Josh, you had a question?
Yeah, just for my own awareness for special meetings, because there will be 5 of us and it's not a normal committee meeting. Does that mean we will be doing the same format as one of these meetings in terms of?
We're gonna kind of run it as a community workshop. So it's gonna be it'll be a formal meeting from a noticing perspective and somewhat, minutes and the process, but we're gonna try to set it up so there's some interaction and it's a community workshop style. So we're gonna try to make it a little bit more open if we can on the 9th.
Okay.
Dan, there was a property donation by Corganville of open space. Is there any update on that?
Yeah, I talked to MRCA and that they're still not there. What they got was approval from the MRCA board to go work on it. Apparently there's still quite a bit of work to make that transaction actually happen. So it's in progress, but the actual approval and takedown of the land or donation of the land is still a ways off. I'll let you know when that actually happens and the time frame for it.
I had a question about the ad hoc committee rules. If it's an ad hoc committee, that's separate than a standing committee?
Yeah, I'll have Mr. Perrick jump in because and I talked about this. So the logic is, as I understand it in the law, if you have a standing committee, it's a regular part of your organization and it's a Brown Acted meeting. So there's an exception in there that allows for board members to attend, additional board members to attend a standing committee because it's a regular part of your organization. It's a standing committee and it's Brown Acted. So in that scenario, as I understand it, additional board members, a third board member could attend and listen to that meeting. However, an ad hoc committee meeting is not a regular part of your organization. So it's something you create, and there's no exception that allows a third board member to attend an ad hoc committee meeting. From a practical perspective, the way the law is constructed, as I understand it, I see Mr. Perrick looking on, from a practical perspective, it's exactly what they don't want under the Brown Act. And that's us creating ad hoc committees that are not standing committees or regular board meetings. They don't want us to create an ad hoc committee meeting. And then all of a sudden that evolves into something where 3 or 4 board members didn't attend. So that's generally what I understand of the law, but there is a specific exemption for board members to attend standing committees. There is no such exemption for board members to attend ad hoc committee meetings. So the alternative is to have it a special meeting, and then all the board, that relieves the requirement that a third member can attend. And I'll let Brian expand on my thought if he wants.
Right. The difference between a standing committee and an advisory committee is that a standing committee has continuing jurisdiction over a subject matter and or has a fixed meeting schedule. And as Dan has indicated, when you have a standing committee, it is then required by the Brown Act to be noticed and have an agenda posted and have the public attend. There is an opportunity for additional board members to attend the standing committee meeting, those that aren't on the committee. However, they can only be there as observers. They cannot participate. Advisory committees, there is no provision in the Brown Act that allows a third board member to attend an advisory committee meeting. So it would have to be limited just to the 2 board members who are members of the advisory committee. And Dan and I had that conversation, which is what led to the special meeting that he's described next week.
Dan, is a solution that at that meeting, I can make a motion that we change it from an ad hoc committee to a standing committee? And then at the end of a year or 2 or whenever we wanted to, when we review committees.
Yeah, I'll let Brian answer that question, but then you're basically taking a standing committee where you are saying is a standing committee and saying we're going to end it in a year. So I'll let Brian expand on that a little.
Now that, I think Dan has kind of hit on it. It would be problematic to change an advisory committee that you acknowledged when it was created was going to have be of limited duration as opposed to continuing jurisdiction, and then call it a standing committee. It might be viewed that that's being done in order to allow other board members to attend the meeting. So if it was an advisory committee when it was formed, it's probably still an advisory committee, and changing the name probably would not be appropriate.
Thank you. Dan, I also request as a part of your report, when appropriate and you have knowledge, updates on the prosecution of the people that attacked our employees.
Okay.
So if we hear any updates, that would be in part of your district manager report. I know that's obviously not going to be every 2 weeks, but I'd appreciate that.
Okay, I can do that, yes.
Any other questions for the district manager? That brings us to closed session.
Did you want me to read the description?
Yes, Brian, please do.
Yeah. So there's 3 closed sessions. They're all pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. They are all conference with labor negotiators. The agency negotiators in each case are the district manager and the director of administration. The employee organizations include the Middle Management Association, the Employees Association Bargaining Unit, and unrepresented employees. And so the appropriate move at this point would be to ask if there's any public comment.
Is there any public comment on the closed session agenda items? If there's public comment, you can unmute yourself or raise your hand. Not seeing any, we'll move into closed session.
And Alex, if you, the folks, the board should be in, the district manager, the attorney, and the department heads. Everyone else should be removed and they rejoin after the closed session.
And I could add that it is not anticipated that there will be any reportable action coming out of the closed session. Any actions that would be taken by the board in connection with these matters would come back at an open session of the board. And so the board can adjourn the meeting at the end of the closed session. There won't be a need to return to open session for adjournment.
That sounds good. We're going to, after the closed session, adjourn because there's not going to be any action taken.
That's right.
Okay, so should I shut off the recording then, or? Because if you're just going to adjourn, you don't need it.
Yeah, my answer would be yes.
Okay.
You're not recording the closed session.